Okay, I'm going to recognize Senator Tollison. Senator Tollison, you want to speak? Yes. Recognize Senator Tollison. Speak on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I'm going to ask you to vote no on this amendment. This is not good for the children of this state. It's not good for the state. We have the State Board of Education adopted standards in 2010. They're Mississippi standards designed to improve K through 12 education. There have literally been millions of dollars spent by school districts, hundreds of hours of training by our teachers and educators, and this would completely undermine all the effort that has been gone into that in the past 4 years. This is not the place for this discussion. Nobody in here is qualified to give an opinion that is an expert opinion on these standards. Nobody. In practicing the law, we have something called Daubert, D-A-U-B-E-R-T. And you have to qualify somebody in a court of law, and thank the Lord we do, because the point of that is to make sure that person has the expertise to speak and give testimony on an issue. And the attorneys in here know what I'm talking about. Right now, there's no one in this chamber or in this Capitol, to my knowledge, that is a psychometrician that can say which standards work. Is it right that we have a math standard that teach kindergartners that you have to count to 100 or to count to 100 by tens? As a matter of fact, up here I haven't heard anybody talk about which standard is wrong or good. The whole point of this commission is to take it out of this politicized forum, and it is politicized, and to move it into this arena where we have put, I think, 27 members who are educators and parents, and give them an opportunity to discuss which concerns they have and dispel some of the myths. And they may make suggestions that would improve the standards. And one of the examples I give when I talk is cursive writing. The standards don't have a requirement, the state standards don't have a requirement to teach cursive writing in second or third grade. Now, a school district may do it, that's their choice. But if this commission determines that cursive writing is important, then that would be incorporated, and it would be determined what grade it is appropriate to do that. Other things about, I think, math and dollar signs and things like that. Let's let the commission review this. It will come back January 1st, and if this legislature sees fit that some standards should be codified, then that can be done next year. This legislature meets every year, and there's a reason for that. If they're not happy with one of the laws in the state, they can change it. But at this time, let's go slowly on this and use a little wisdom. A little wisdom is sometimes good with something this important. And give this commission an opportunity to work. I know everybody has a lot of knowledge. We can get on the internet and have a lot of knowledge. But sometimes wisdom might be a good thing. And have a little patience and let this, give an opportunity to work. And let's do something with patience. And then, if it comes back January 2016, and I respect this. I respect Senator McDaniel and the efforts that Senator Watson and Senator Hill have done, and the parents that have been emailing us. I respect that. But we need to all build consensus and build a consensus to do what's right for the kids. I actually have children in public school. And I know there are a few of y'all that may have children and grandchildren, but I do have children in public school. This affects them. And so I can kind of speak as a parent up here and say, you know what, let's let the educators work on this instead of the politicians. When I go to the doctor, I don't go to Senator Kirby because he's chairman of public health. I go to Dr. Dennis up in Oxford, Mississippi. So let's give this a little chance. And if we're not happy with the recommendations of the commission, we can come back, this legislature can come back and codify those changes and have the discussion. I think there's going to be members of the Senate on there, but they're going to be also educators. So I'd ask you to vote against the amendment. Let's adopt the commission and move forward. So thank you.
Senator Jones, for what purpose do you seek recognition?
Question, Mr. President.
Senator Tollison, you yield for a question.
Yes.
Senator Tollison.
And Senator Sojourner.
I'm just trying to see what we're doing, seriously, because I don't understand one way or another what we're doing with Common Core. And I mean, we're hearing this and we're hearing that, but I'm trying to get an understanding of exactly what Common Core is doing, because in the process of the politics, we really don't know what we're doing. A lot of us, and we don't know if Common Core at this point is good for Mississippi or bad for Mississippi. The only thing we going on and basing this vote on is the arguments that we hear at the podium and what the community tells us to keep Common Core standards because of this. Then you have the other side of the community saying Common Core is not good. I got a 16-year-old daughter that asked me, I've never asked you to vote against anything, Daddy, but you need to vote against Common Core because it's not good. And she went on to explain to me why I shouldn't vote for Common Core. And now if a 16-year-old can do it, I know somebody at that podium ought to be able to tell me why or why we shouldn't vote for Common Core instead of politics.
Is there a question?
That was the question.
All right.
I'm stumped and I'm confused. I need help.
I think my answer is this is not the proper forum. A commission that is created in this bill is the proper forum to hear your questions. And you can take your daughter to this commission and she can explain why she doesn't like it or likes it or whatever. And then let them talk about it and talk through the issues. But we are not in we're not in the experts to make that determination. I think this should be handed over to folks who have more expertise, who are trained professionals in that. You come, like I said, I'm a trained lawyer. I also, I guess, being in the legislature, a policymaker. But I think this is something that it would be in our best interest to allow a commission to review these standards. And I think the most important thing is give parents and other educators an opportunity to be heard. And I think there should be some additions to this or changes, but let them hear it and discuss it and then make those recommendations to the legislature. And again, next year the legislature can make the determination whether they want to codify some of these standards. And that would, I mean, ultimately the legislature could do that.
Let them do their job.
I think it's in the best interest of...
Bring us something back.
Yes.
Okay, so with you being the education chairman, that's what you're asking us to do.
I am asking to do that, to vote against this, which would basically eliminate the standards, and I guess you wouldn't have any, but if you go back to the old standards, which have been determined not to be very good standards. So I would ask you to vote against this amendment that would do that.
So what happens in the process?
Well, if you vote down the amendment and it's not adopted, then, and vote for the committee substitute, that would just basically create the commission, the 27-member commission, that would be charged with reviewing the standards that were adopted by the State Board of Education.
So during that time when they're there, we go under the same Common Core standard that was adopted previously?
The existing Mississippi college and career standards would remain in place, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Jones. Senator Hill, for what purpose do you see recognition?
Question,
Does
Mr.
the
President.
chairman yield for a question?
Yes.
You recognize Senator Hill.
Thank you, Senator Tolleson. Would you agree that the Commission on College and Career Readiness was a part of the bill that I filed originally and was incorporated into your bill?
Yes, absolutely. Look, it builds consensus. It's a
Yes.
compromise and building a consensus.
Yes.
And when you have a successful legislature or policy or legislation, that's how it works.
So I just want to make it clear that the Commission was my idea to put the experts from the state of Mississippi in charge of this. And in no way does my amendment do away with this commission. My amendment only makes their recommendations binding. So I want to just question you and make that clear that my amendment does not do away with the commission. It actually strengthens the commission and makes the recommendations of the experts in the state of Mississippi binding.
Well,
so as to whether their work is all not for nothing.
well, I understand. Like I said, the legislature comes back by the Constitution each year, and if they make a determination that those commission findings or recommendations are good, well, first they recommend it to the state board, and as it should work, let's let the executive agency work, and if the State Board of Education could adopt the findings. Let's instead of micromanaging this, let's allow the commission to work, make the recommendations, present the findings to the State Board of Education, and then allow the State Board of Education an opportunity to look at the standards. They may adopt them, and then we won't have to get into this debate. But if they don't, there is the backstop that the legislature can come back and have oversight over that.
Well, I'm reading the Mississippi Constitution, and it gives the legislature the right to prescribe law for implementation. And I'm not even going that far. I'm saying let the experts' decision be binding. So I just want to make that clear. Right. Thank you.
And as you know, the State Board of Education is also in the Constitution. And
so they are. I'm actually reading under their portion. It basically, Section 203 of the state constitution, it says the State Board of Education shall manage and invest school funds according to law, formulate policies according to law for implementation by the State Department, and perform such other duties as prescribed by law. So the Constitution does not prohibit anything that we're trying to do here.
That's exactly right. But I think the scenario I described makes sense. So,
thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hill. Senator Sojourner, for what purpose do you seek recognition?
For a question, Mr. President.
Does Chairman yield for a question?
Yes.
You recognize Senator Sojourner.
Thank you, Senator Tolan. Just for clarification purposes, I'm a little bit confused because I listened to you earlier in the initial explanation of the bill talk about how we need to move to better standards. We need to make some improvements. There's a lot of room there for those improvements. I listened to Senator Hill talk about her amendment and how she was actually empowering those professionals to make those decisions and to actually have to move forward on them. But then when you came up and you said that you encouraged the body to vote no, you made the statement that we've already spent several years and lots of resources moving in a certain direction and you don't want us backing up. Hasn't what we've done the last couple of years is spend time and resources moving toward Common Core standards? So
they're Mississippi standards, and I don't see anything wrong with that. And I would dispute the early adopters. Kentucky has actually seen gains, but I don't want to get into that debate because the facts are something that I think that commission would be better suited to determine whether Kentucky, which has implemented this from 2010, has seen increases in their ACT scores. They've seen increases in their graduation rates. They've seen good increases in elementary scores in terms of proficiency rates. We don't need to go about he said, she said, and debate the facts. I think a commission would be better suited for that. But I do think it's undermining our education, K through 12 education, our teachers out there, by saying, hey, let's just throw these out, start all over. You know, people talk about the Massachusetts standards. They are great. They were adopted in '93. But nobody came forward in 2010 and said, instead of adopting these Mississippi College Career Standards, put that. But it's just been too much time invested, and I think it's not something you can flippantly just eliminate, and that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. So I guess this even helps to better understand that if we are fully wanting the educators, not the politicians that originally adopted or who wrote Common Core, but if we're wanting the educators and the professionals to bring forward standards and implement them, then we really need to vote for Senator Hill's bill. If we're okay with, I think, giving the opportunity for what we have to move forward, we should vote against it.
Well, I disagree, and I just think that educators, the State Board of Education adopt this with the recommendation of educators, the state superintendent, and other folks at their office. And by the way, these standards, and I think they're actually teachers in this state who were involved in the writing of the standards that are teachers in Mississippi. And, you know, but I don't want to I think, again, you know, that's a discussion for commission to have. And let people get all the facts out there, and they can dispute the facts and make the recommendations, and I guess you can have dissenting recommendations and things like that. So
Yeah, I agree with that. I haven't seen anything that points to the direction that any educators in Mississippi had any authorship in any of the standards. So just to be clear, that if we are wanting the commission to develop with experts standards by which Mississippi children should adhere to, then and that they must be implemented, that the only way we're going to get there today is by supporting Senator Hill's amendment.
No. Sorry. As I said,
your bill says
they can review the existing standards If they want to supplement that or make changes, they can make recommendations to do that. That's
Correct.
what
Your
I
bill
said.
says that they should hear those recommendations.
That's correct.
Okay.
And as I said, give the State Board of Education a chance to do what they've done. If you want to be on the State Board of Education, go talk to Governor Bryant.
Sure.
And you can be on that. If you want to be in the legislature, you know, that's another thing. But I do think we ought to give the State Board of Education an opportunity to, as I said to Senator Hill just a minute ago, commission hears testimony, listens, makes recommendations. They submit it to the State Board of Education. State Board of Education determines what they have with it on January 1st. The legislature's in session. If the legislature's not happy with it, they can take their action. But give the system an opportunity to work in this circumstance.
I think with Senator Hill's amendment, that's exactly what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hill. Senator Watson for purpose of UC recognition.
Question.
Does Senator yield for a question?
Yes.
You're recognized, Senator Watson.
Thank you, Senator Tolleson. And I know you're probably getting a little tired of questions, but you said something a minute ago about we don't need to micromanage. Did the State Board of Education recommend the special needs ESA? Or is that something that we did as a legislature?
That's something we did. But,
So we can implement policy and we can direct policy,
But standards, I think, are a little bit deeper in the weeds.
but we can implement policy.
I don't want to bring kindergarten students up here and start teaching them in the Senate chamber.
They may learn a lot.
I don't think I'm qualified to do that, and I don't think you are either, Senator Watson. I can teach. I taught my children and taught them how to, or worked with them to read and supported what the schools were doing. But yeah, I think the standards are a little more technical and something that should be left to educators and psychometricians to determine building that foundation of what a child should know by kindergarten and build upon that. And I don't think you would disagree with that.
You say
Psychometrician.
yeah, that big word you used, and you said that was standard experts?
Well, I mean, it's part of the system. It's part of measuring that. And I don't know. I'm here to profess I don't know who is involved, but I know that professors in the education community in math and whatever the core content should be involved in that, and they were involved in writing the standards we're talking about.
So you understand with Common Core state standards, they are not tested and proven. You understand that?
Well, I think they have been tested in several other states, and the
No.
early adopters. Well, they have. I don't want to dispute.
Okay, I get that. Before they were adopted.
Right.
They were not tested or
But
proven.
you got to remember, Senator Watson, I guess before you were here, we had MCT, and then we had MCT2. And, you know, if you want to use the word guinea pig, I don't think that's right. They were hopefully better standards. We're trying to make better standards because I think it's obviously critical for student achievement to build upon your knowledge, and that's the whole point of that.
Here's my question. They were or were not tested before they were adopted? Yes or no?
The
Common Core state standards. They
They were
were or
tested.
were not. They were or were not tried and true, proven standards prior to their adoption.
Well, they were.
The question
they
is
were-
yes or no. You're a lawyer. Yes or no?
I would say yes, they were proven because they were built upon other standards out there, including international.
Built
standards.
another standard. I'm glad you said international because the Common Core State Standards website, what they said was these were internationally benchmarked originally.
Right.
But what they then came back and said, you know what, that's not true. They removed internationally benchmarked from the website because they're not internationally benchmarked.
Well, Senator Watson, I mean, I want to go back and forth about he said, she said.
I got you.
But
I got you. I'm just on facts, and that's
okay.
fine. So,
if you want to get in a court of law, I think again a commission's better to discuss those issues.
I completely agree.
Okay.
And that's what the amendment's saying. Use the
But I don't
commission's
know what that
recommendations.
has to do with what a child is learning in
All
second
right. So,
grade.
so why did the state board adopt the Common Core State Standards?
Why did they?
Yeah. Yes,
well, to I guess improve education in the state of Mississippi.
Gotcha. So if that was the reason they adopted it,
And our MCT2 by an independent body was given a grade of D on English language arts.
Perfect. So
Wait. Can I finish?
yes, sir.
Answering the question?
Yes, sir. Because I got another one.
Okay. Which they said the grade of D, these are MCT2, which you want to go back to.
No, that's not what I want to do.
Now, well,
read the commission.
That's what the amendment says.
No, it doesn't.
Well, it goes
implement the
back-
commission's recommendations.
Can I finish answering the question?
Well, you're not going to
My
misquote what the
interpretation
amendment
of that,
says.
it goes back to, so you don't have no standards.
No, that's not what we
Okay.
said.
All
Read
right, can I
2690.
finish reading this, Senator Watson? It says, with the grade of D, and these are MCT2 standards, the old standards, Mississippi's English language arts standards among the worst in the country, while those developed by the Standards Initiative earn a B+. So, I mean, I don't know if you dispute that. Maybe you do. And I don't have, again, I'm relying on people who know about that, so.
Well, here's the deal. You can't prove or point anywhere where I've ever said I want to go back to lower standards, because I don't. And that's what Common Core proponents like to argue. They want to dumb our kids back down. That's not the case. But what my question was, and what you haven't answered yet, is why did the State Board adopt the Common Core state standards? Would you be shocked if I read the minutes in which they adopted them, and it said, on finding of imminent peril to public welfare and the loss of substantial federal funds from Race to the Top grant. It doesn't say these are great standards. It says we may lose federal money. Those are the same people, or are those the same people that you want to entrust and say, hey, we're just going to give them some recommendations, maybe they'll make them?
Yeah.
Someone that adopted it on federal funds.
Well, I mean, and certainly the State Board of Education, I have confidence if they didn't like them, they could get rid of them. And certainly you could lobby them. There are 9 members over there, and there are going to be 2 members come before this committee or come before the Senate. And if you don't like them, you can vote against them. So
I understand that.
As a matter of fact, I think Governor Bryant, you know Governor Bryant, if you don't like his appointments, then you can get somebody else and change them. That may be a way to do it.
But were you aware of the minutes where they adopted them for lack of federal funds?
I haven't read the minutes. And I certainly haven't looked at it in the whole context. So
you like the commission.
I don't dispute if that's what it says. That's fine. But I look at it in the whole context.
So you like the commission. You just don't want to have to be stuck to their recommendations.
No, I disagree. Let's let the system work in terms of let the commission make the recommendations to the State Board of Education and allow the State Board of Education the opportunity to review the recommendations and adopt them. Maybe they adopt them all. We won't know until we get to that future event.
Last
and if
question.
they don't, then the legislature, if they see fit, can adopt those particular standards they don't like. I mean, I don't know what it is. You know, teaching a kid to count to 100 in kindergarten, I think that's important. My kid knew how to count to 100 in kindergarten. If we don't want to teach that, if we want to count, not to count, I don't know. But let's let the system work. And I think this is, again, a good model to vote for. So
I'm not sure where that was point or going, but the question is, do you trust the folks that adopt the Common Core state standards based on the lack of possible federal funds, who have continued to publicly say they support the Common Core state standards, to accept recommendations from a commission? Do you trust that to happen?
I trust the State Board of Education, who are the appointees are by the governor. I guess all of them now are by Governor Barber and Governor Bryant. Yes, the members on there.
Yes, that was the answer.
Yes.
Senator Jordan, for what purpose do you see recognition? Okay. Senator Tyndall, for what purpose do you see recognition?
I have a question, Mr. President.
Does the senator yield for a question?
Well, I'll get
Senator Thompson, you yield for?
Yes.
You recognize Senator Tyndall.
Just so I'll understand, once the commission is formed and they're looking at all the different alternatives, do they have to make any alternatives to what we're doing now?
No. I mean, I think they could say, hey, these, after reviewing, after taking testimony, after hearing from various people, parents, legislators, whomever, they don't have to. But I suspect, and I only have to look at what happened in other states. In Florida, they went through a similar process, and there were 99 recommendations for additions or changes. So I suspect there will be some recommendations for changes, additions.
But in fact, if they did not make any recommendations, or they recommended that we don't make any changes, if we take Senator Hill's amendment and it says we shall accept what they say, then the flip side is we could be stuck doing the same exact thing we're doing now, correct?
Possibly, yes.
Okay. Now, and I think that's a good point to that is, even with the shall language, we can come back if we don't like what they recommend. We could come back and change it, because that doesn't hold us our next legislative session to what we do now. Do you understand what I'm asking?
I don't.
Well, if we put in shall and we don't like what the recommendations are, we could come in and say we're not going to allow you to accept those recommendations they made.
Honestly, I like, again, that goes back to micromanaging, something we probably don't have expertise in. Let's give the experts an opportunity to review these instead of us throwing out facts here and there and not have a complete set of the facts. And let's hear from educators, and let's hear from folks who develop the standards, and bring in people and why they did it and what they did, before we mandate something, I guess. and give the State Board of Education an opportunity to do what it was charged with doing.
Well, one of the things that I was looking at in the bill, and I just want to make sure I understand what the effect is, on lines 171 through about 179, it says that no curriculum standards developed outside the state of Mississippi, including but not limited to the next generation of science standards, the national curriculum standards for social studies, and the national sexuality education standards, not sure what that is, and no standards that use the same model framework as such standards developed primarily by entities outside the state of Mississippi may be adopted or implemented statewide without public hearings held in each congressional district and open comment period of 1 year. So if somebody were to come back in and say, we're going to recommend that we fully implement the state Common Core standards that have been proposed, wouldn't there have to be a 1 year period and public hearings according to that provision?
That's correct.
All right. So as the bill stands now, if somebody wanted to keep Common Core, if the Department of Education said, you know what, we're going to keep Common Core, would they not have to go through this procedure here before they were allowed to do that?
I don't think so, no. I think that's new ones going forward.
Okay, so that's new going forward.
Prospective.
Okay. All right, those are my questions.
Thank you, Senator Tindall. Senator Parker, for purpose UC recognition.
One quick question.
Does Senator yield for a question?
Yes.
You're recognized, Senator Parker.
I've been listening to this discussion for a long time. First of all, thank you for all of your work on this. Thank you, Senator Hill. I know this is something, like you mentioned earlier, referencing Senator Kirby. It's not my area of expertise, and so this is a struggle, I think, for most of us in this room to deal or address these things here. And the one thing that I keep coming back to here, and it goes back to what Senator Jones said earlier, is the word "here" and the word "implement" on this. And this is, I guess, in contrast to what Senator Tindall just said a moment ago, if the Commission were to recommend that we make these changes, and then they go to the Board of Education, and the Board of Education says, well, we like your recommendations, but we kind of like it as it is. If we don't use the word "implement" for the Commission, are we just kind of just giving all of the power back to the State Board of Education? And if we are, what's the point of doing a commission if we're not going to listen to their recommendations and actually act on them?
Well, as I said earlier, I think let's give the State Board an opportunity to do that. You're presuming they're not. Let's presume they do. And then we don't have to deal with that. That's one less issue that this legislature has to deal with, and then maybe we can work on other issues. And that's the whole point.